greetings from Rabat in Morocco. I would very much have liked to be with you in person in Bonn. Had unfortunately to leave last Saturday due to commitments back here in Morocco. So as lead counsel for climate change at the Center for International Sustainable Development Law, I would like to thank you for taking part in this event and commend you for your interest and engagement in this important topic that is bringing us together for a side event looking at these important issues. I wanted to briefly touch upon three elements. First, about the importance of law and governance innovation to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement and the Convention, also reflecting on the Glasgow outcomes. I wanted to briefly touch upon as well on the gaps in legal and engagement capacity, specifically from an African perspective. And finally, the important role that the Climate Law and Governance Initiative and its flagship Climate Law and Governance Day can play in helping to address some of these gaps. As an introduction, I wanted to refer to a document that's been recently communicated by the United Nations Secretary General's team. I am not referring to the important IPCC work and other very important and relevant body of work. I wanted to refer to this particular element as it is very recent and also because I believe several other speakers will be reflecting on the very important findings of the IPCC sixth assessment report in particular. So what I'm referring to is the advanced unedited version of the report of the Secretary General entitled Progress Towards the Sustainable Development Goals that is published in the context of the high-level political forum of sustainable development that will be taking place next month. And specifically, I wanted to call your attention to two of the paragraphs, paragraphs 125 and paragraph 129 that are included in the subsection Goal 13, take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. So with apologies, I briefly read an excerpt of paragraph 125 and then paragraph 129 because I think it contributes quite well to setting the scene in terms of what I want to share with you. Paragraph 125. Increased heat waves, drought, and floods caused by climate change are destroying the planet and affecting billions of lives worldwide. Despite the temporary reduction of CO2 emissions in 2020, global energy-related CO2 emissions are projected to rebound and grow by 4% as demand for coal, oil, and gas rebounds with the economy in 2021. Based on current national commitments, global emissions are set to increase by almost 14% over the current decade, which could lead to a climate catastrophe unless governments, the private sector, and civil society work together to take immediate action. And paragraph 129, to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, scientists recommend that by 2030, global emissions should be cut by 45% compared to 2010 levels. According to current national commitments, however, global emissions are set to increase by almost 14% during the rest of the decade. So evidently that connects to the findings I was referring to previously of the IPCC and the importance of listening to the science. But as such, this picture that is painted by the two paragraphs that I quoted is obviously not a reassuring one. And I believe that law and governance innovation and reform can play a very important role in helping to address that gap and helping to enabling more ambition and to fulfilling the pledges that have been made, whether it is in the context of the Paris Agreement, the convention, or more recently during COP26, as of course we look towards COP27, which will be the first. So clearly, the scale of the challenge is very sizable, and as such, the gaps to fill are on various levels. There is an ambition gap, there is an implementation gap, and there is also a partnership gap that is connecting to these two levels, among other types of gaps. And in terms of the role that the legal community, the law and governance community can play in that sense, I believe it is quite central when it comes to helping to address those gaps in a manner that is conducive to meeting the objectives of the Paris Agreement within the context of the broader 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Looking at it from an African perspective, as I think just actually a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week? I think it was 2 weeks ago, in the context of the 24-hour marathon that was organized to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Montevideo Environmental Law Program, the IUCN World Commission on Environmental Law organized two webinars in partnership with UNEP and other stakeholders, and I was quite involved in both of them. I wanted to refer to the second one, which was looking at partnerships to advance environmental law in Africa. And what has emerged is that on one hand, there has been a tremendous amount of progress when it comes to the African capacities and ability to contribute to the discourse more broadly and to also help drive implementation at the local level, national level, and more globally. There are also very much gaps that remain in terms of capacity, in terms of financing, in terms of expertise. And I certainly wants to stray away from a narrative that there is no expertise in Africa when it comes to environmental law. Certainly not. There is tremendous amount of expertise when it comes to that topic in Africa, but it always requires more of that when it comes to the incoming batch of legal experts that are currently studying and graduating from universities in Africa and all over the world, but also when it comes to providing the means of implementation and the means to engage for this African expertise so that it can further diffuse its knowledge, learn from one another, and help drive the kind of collaboration and partnership that are so helpful to implementation on the ground. And the Climate Law and Governance Day, and more broadly, the Climate Law and Governance Initiative, have an important role to play in that sense. They already have been the Climate Law and Governance Initiative has already played that role for quite some time now. And I think what we have seen over the last few years is clearly a recognition of the importance of that initiative and its flagship, which is the Climate Law and Governance Day, when it comes to fostering the kind of space that is helpful, that is on one hand an opportunity to take stock of what has taken place, what is currently happening, but also project ourselves. Really sorry about those interruptions. As you can see, those are some of the issues, some of the limitations of connecting remotely to some event or activities. Is that one needs to also be working on other issues at the same time, and it can be difficult to find some time slot where one can be dedicated to one issue versus the other. So when it comes to the Climate Law and Governance Day, I can only strongly encourage you to engage with the Climate Law and Governance Day. There are many opportunities to engage during the day itself. So there is an agenda that is defined based on the results of the conversation that are taking place in Bonn with the support of an international scientific committee. There will also be a climate law and governance-based legislation course, which provides yet another opportunity to facilitate capacity building. And the Climate Law and Governance Initiative made a pledge to significantly enhance the amount of legal experts that are looking at climate change issues and legal law and governance experts actually that are looking at climate change issues to once again facilitate further ambition and further implementation on the ground that is aligned with the objectives of the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thank you very much for your engagement, and again, apologize for not being with you in person and for all the interruptions during my intervention. Thank you very much. Take care. Have a great side event.